Huh, that's so interesting. Not
Yeah.
intuitive.
And then same for Anna, needs to be
Anna?
Spanish recording.
Okay. Okay, so I think you have permission, Anna, to record local, but let me know if you don't. Okay. Cool. And Jessica, do you need any permissions or are you good?
I need none, thank you.
Thank you all for being so prompt. We're going to start in a couple minutes.
Gracias a todos por ser tan puntuales. Vamos a empezar en unos minutos.
Vanessa, can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Right, the live stream has started and it's 5 o'clock, so I think we will get started. To make sure that everybody could participate in the meeting in the language that you are most comfortable. We're going to explain, I'm going to explain, this is Diana, how to do the, change it to the channel that you would most like, and then Linguistica is going to explain the same instructions in Spanish. So if you would like to listen to the meeting in English, please select the little icon at the bottom of your screen that looks like a little globe, and then select English. If you're connecting with us today on Zoom, on your phone, or on a tablet, they'll have 3 dots at the bottom of your screen, and click those first, and then click interpretation and then English. So I'm going to pass it to Linguistica to give those instructions in Spanish.
Thank you very much, Diana. Buenas tardes a todos, bienvenidos. Les recordamos que ya tenemos la interpretación lista para ustedes. Si desean escuchar la reunión en español e ingresaron con una computadora, van a ver el icono de un mundo en la parte de abajo del menú de Zoom. Por favor, seleccionen ese icono y seleccionen el canal de español. También les invitamos a silenciar el audio original para que solo puedan escuchar al intérprete y no escuchen 2 voces a la vez. Si ustedes ingresaron con una tableta o un teléfono móvil, sus opciones son un poco diferentes. Necesitan tocar su pantalla y van a ver 3 puntitos en el menú que dice más o more, ya sea en la parte de arriba o de abajo de su pantalla. Seleccionen donde dice interpretación de idioma. En algunas opciones con las actualizaciones ya les aparece el mundo también en el celular. Seleccionen esto y seleccionen el canal de español. También nuevamente silenciar el audio original y por último el botón que diga done, listo o finaliza. Si necesitan ayuda nos pueden dejar saber. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we're going to give it, this is Diana again. I'm going to give it a minute to make sure everybody gets into the right channel. If you need some help or you're having problems getting into the language channel that you would like, raise your hand or unmute or put a question in the chat. Everyone okay? Does anybody need any interpretation, connection help?
Did it change? I can't find the globe that normally has it. I'm sorry, I came in a little late.
This is Diana.
Okay.
Linda, are you joining on your phone or on a computer?
It's my phone.
So there should be like 3 dots. So in the slide on the bottom left, there's like a picture of what the 3 dots look like. So you're gonna have to click that first, and then more, and then it won't have the globe. It will then say interpretation.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Anyone else have questions about getting to the right language channel? Okay, if at some point the language gets weird or you're not hearing the language that you want to hear, raise your hand and we could pause and get you into the right spot. So welcome to the May Shafter Community Steering Committee meeting. We're really, really excited to have you all here today. I think we have a really informative meeting ahead of us. A couple logistic things to make sure we all have before we get started. So as usual, please rename yourself so we know who you are and we can keep track of attendance. So if you're a CSC member, please change your screen name to CSC and then your name. If you're somebody joining us from an agency, please add your agency's name at the end of your name. And as you might have seen, some of us from the facilitation team or from the Air District might help with the renaming just so that we know who everybody is. When you are not talking, please stay on mute. If you're joining us from a phone, you could mute yourself by doing star and then the number 6. If you want to ask a question, you could unmute, you could raise your hand, raise your virtual hand. You could actually raise your physical hand, and we'll see that as well. If you're joining us on the phone and would like to raise your hand, you use star and then 9. So star and 9 to raise your hand, and then star and 6 to unmute if you're joining from the phone. We have a really exciting agenda today. So again, I'm Diana from the Harder & Company Community Research Facilitation Team. I'm joined by my colleague Vanessa, also from Harder & Company. And we have a number of folks here from the Air District. You'll mostly hear today from Jessica Olson and Rocio Calderon from the Air District. We're going to start with, as we usually do, with reviewing the action items from our past meetings. And then we'll spend most of today's meeting talking about the SERP incentive budget discussion. So a longer discussion specifically about the budget and how much we have left for the different SERP measures. We'll also have our usual standing updates, and then wrap up as usual talking about agenda items for the next meeting, and then closing with public comment. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and look at all of your lovely faces, my favorite part. Yes, and I'm going to pass it to Jessica now to do some opening remarks.
Thank you, Diana. This is Jessica. I'm with the Valley Air District. I want to once again welcome all of you to our meeting. It's so exciting to have all of you here. I know a few of you got to see some of our district members this weekend. We have some exciting updates about progress up until even some work that was done on Saturday on your SERP. So really excited to get going today. And as always, I think this is just another plug for if any of you for upcoming meetings want to help us prepare the agenda and also help do what we're doing, which is kind of lead the meeting and co-host, please let us know whether it's right now or at the end of the meeting, or reach out to Rocio. We'd love to work on an upcoming meeting with you all. Thank you. Thanks, Diana.
Thank you, Jessica. And I'll put in another plug for co-hosts. We're happy to work with you about what you'd like to say and how you would like to plug in, so you could do as little or as much as you would like if you're a co-host. And it's always really fun for us to work with you all and get to talk to you a little bit more than we get to in these meetings. So now is the time of the meeting where we look at the action items from past meetings. And this is to support openness and transparency and to have the Air District share what progress they've made on the action items that came up in the previous CSC meeting. So I'm going to pass it to Rocio to share her screen and talk about those.
Thank you, Diana. Good evening, everyone. This is Rocio. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen to get started with the action items. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Seeing some nods, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so for today's action items, we have a few in progress and a few in the completed sections. So I'll start with the in progress. And the first two action items is for the Air District to work with the Kern County Public Works team on potential future paving projects that the residents had some interest in. So the district is working with the Kern County Public Works team on this, and then we'll get back to the CSC with an update. And then going back to the top and to the completed section. So the first completed action item was for the district to check if one of the previous action items was referring to the vegetative barriers or the urban greening project. And so we went back and confirmed that it was for the vegetative barriers. And then just to remind folks, this was an action item that we're asking about allocating more funds to this measure. And just to remind folks, there's still lots of funding left in the vegetative barriers program at the moment. So moving on to the next completed action items was for the district to send copies of the CERT presentations from last month to the residents who asked. So we went ahead and mailed those out to those folks who requested them. And moving on to the next one, for the district to follow up with John and the wonderful team to get an update on the vegetative barriers measure. And then we do have an update on this measure today that we'll share in the presentation. And then moving on to the last completed action item. This was from, again, a previous meeting where folks were interested in bringing back the discussion of allocating funds to the low dust nut harvester measure. And then as folks know, in today's meeting, we're going to have a budget discussion. So this will be a great opportunity for the CSC to discuss funding reallocation to the CERT measures. And that was the last action item. I'm happy to stop right here and take any questions or comments that folks might have.
This is Diana. Does anybody have any questions for Rocio or something that you want her to go over again or explain more? Angie, go for it.
I have a question in regards to the vegetative barrier. And I know this is not really geared towards that type of discussion, but my question was in regards to when we have a field that's being sprayed across from housing, how can we convince that orchard owner that it's important to have a vegetative barrier? Because I know we can't force them to take them on. How can we make that more suggestive?
This is Jessica. That's a great question. We actually have that exact discussion. And I'll just flag your question for when we get there in just a moment. But just a brief answer is that's exactly what we want to do, is make sure we're reaching out to folks and imploring them to take advantage of the funding. Because to your point, we can't make them, but we also do have funding for them. And I wonder if, you know, the mixture of really convincing and then hopefully letting them know that the funding is available helps make sure, no, it's not like we're just asking them to do it on their own, right? We do have funding for it. And so in a minute, we're about to have an update from the folks that did plant some barriers and where those were and kind of how that's going, but also next steps. And I think that's a great point you bring up, Angie.
Okay, because I kind of had a little situation that happened a couple weeks ago, and the way I called the ag commissioner like it's supposed to be done, and the answer I got was like, not really an answer. It was more of a, oh, you're calling about which field? Oh yeah, we know about it. Oh yeah, we'll have someone check it. Well, do you need my name and number? No, we've had other calls, but when we go out there, there's nothing being done. So it's like waved off, and and going on. So, and it's
Yeah.
happened twice in the last 2 weeks. And then we had
Wow.
on the Nextdoor app, you can see people complaining 2
Hmm.
streets away from the field saying that they got sprayed in the middle of the night in their backyards because this helicopter was going off at 9, 10, almost 11 o'clock at night spraying. And I live right across from the orchard. So yeah, that was my concern. That was, yeah,
Definitely. Thank you, Angie.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Angie. This is Diana again. Any other questions for Rocio or questions about any of the action items or something you'd like to see her talk more about? Bianca, go for it.
That's why I wanted I wanted to clarify a comment that I heard right now. That's why we need a notification in the community of Shafter. We're surrounded by agriculture, and these type of incidents are going to happen frequently, especially right now that we have spraying season right at the moment. And this remarks that the ag commissioner did, those are the frustrating parts that communities have to deal with. So I urge DPR at this point. I urge the Air District and whoever everyone is listening that people are being poisoned. People are being neglected of what type of material they're being sprayed on. And these actions are happening frequently. People don't speak on it, but when we do, we get a big disremark from our officials, from the ag commissioner, from DPR. So I urge everybody to be here together and collectively do our work, because if they're not doing their job, our community is being poisoned, and we can't have another year having this type of issue.
Thank you, Bianca. This is Jessica. I do know that DPR also during their update today will talk about pesticide notification. So thank you for that comment.
Yeah, and this is Diana, and both for Angie and Bianca, as well as any of the rest of you as we go through the meeting and hopefully address some of those things. Feel free to, bring that up again if you have follow-up comments or questions for what your questions are now. I think that's actually a really good transition to our next agenda item, which is again where we're going to spend the bulk of our time today. So this is the SERP incentive budget discussion. So this will be a summary of where the SERP measures stand, both related to funding as well as the amount of funds that have been spent, and also emissions reductions related to them. Jessica from the Air District is going to do an overview first, and then details related to each of the individual SERP measures. All of this information is the same that's shared with each of you in the pre-meeting packets each month, and wanted to spend a little bit of time today, actually based on a suggestion from a CSC member last month, kind of digging into the details of this, and a lot of them have some suggested next steps as well. So I think this will be a really fruitful discussion. Jessica's going to stop a couple times for questions. And also, if there's something that you don't understand or want to hear more about, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand as she goes along. So Jessica, take it away.
Thank you, Diana. This is Jessica. I'm going to share my screen. I skipped the title slide. You were just on that first slide with real information that should be in your packet. And as Diana mentioned, we are here today to talk about the SERP, or Community Emissions Reduction Program, all of the measures, a reminder of where we started and where we're at. And there's a couple of times that I will pause either to talk a little bit in detail about some measure, or in a couple cases, pass it actually to a partner to provide an update about the measure. So as a reminder, there's over $38 million of funding in your SERP. We aim to reduce almost 2,000 total tons of both PM 2.5 and NOx reductions through all of these measures. In the 51 measures that you have, 26 of them are incentives measures, and those are the measures we'll talk about today. We also, of course, have enforcement and permitting, outreach measures, and land use and partnership measures, all of which really, go to support not only the incentives, but also reducing the impact of some of the pollution, not necessarily just incentivizing emissions reduction. So just as a reminder, we've been trying to regularly update you on whether it's monthly, we send out the tracker that Diana just mentioned. Once a quarter, we try to line it up with these months over here. We've tried to provide just regular implementation updates. And then twice a year, we're trying to really talk about how we can, we say adapt and tailor, but really what that means is, can we shift funding or shift the focus of some of the outreach we do to make sure that that funding is going as far as we need it? Even to Angie's point, how do we make sure folks are taking advantage of what we need? There's a reason it's in the SERP, it's to help the community. And then once a year, as you know, we also have an annual report. So we're kind of in this stage right here where we're talking about shifting funding, or at least seeing where funding is at and if we need to shift funding. It's not always necessarily about moving it. Here's a breakdown, and I just want to spend a little bit of time on this slide and the next slide, which are two different looks at the same information. This is all of the funding that's in the SERP. This is the funding by breakdown of types of measures. So ag and business measures are measures aimed at ag and business. So that would be like low dust harvesters, alternatives to agricultural open burning, tractors, trucks. Local government measures are things like urban greening and vegetative barriers, things like car share, charging stations. And then residential measures are things like car replacement, car repair, lawnmowers, things like air purifiers. This is the breakdown of how much funding is in each of these measures. And this is how much reduction comes with each of these measures. So you can see that even though ag and business and local government and residential are a similar breakdown, there's certainly more, a little bit more in ag and business measures. There's a lot more reduction that we get from ag and business measures than we do from any of the other measures combined. And that's because primarily a lot of the pollution that we're talking about come from heavy duty trucks, tractors, harvesting, right? So it comes from those heavy industrial or agricultural or business-like things happening in your community. And so that's why we're able to get as much here in the reductions column as we can. Another example is the reason we don't get a lot of reductions in the local government measures is because it's maybe something that is really impactful for you all as community members, like putting bike lanes in or adding curb and sidewalk and gutter, but maybe doesn't get as many emissions reductions because those things aren't as polluting as a heavy duty truck or a tractor. So that's just something to keep in mind. One of the things though that we did is we've shown this to you a couple of times, but we've made so much progress that we also wanted to show this breakdown in a little bit of a different way. So I'll walk you through this. This is also in your packet if you want to look a little bit closer. But these are those residential measures. And of all the residential measures, we're still working on deploying a lot, and you'll see that in the next few slides. We've achieved about 8% of the reductions we're hoping to achieve, and we are about to launch a variety of measures that we think will help us achieve the rest of the reductions we're targeting. For local government measures, similarly, we have about 20% that we've achieved in launching all of these programs and still a little bit of a ways to go. In ag and business measures, we've achieved over 80% of those 1,136 tons that we tried to aim for. So a lot of questions we've been talking about timing and all of the different measures we've launched. It's really good that we've been able to target as best we can, reducing as many emissions as possible as soon as possible from the places that pollute the most in the community. And so that's really where we're doing here. And really with that great partnership in having those ag and business folks come to the table. It's not like they're getting free tractors or free equipment, but they're really coming to the table and splitting that cost with the community. So a lot of investment there and a lot of reductions achieved. So that said, we wanted to just go measure by measure and just talk about where we're at. So this, I'll just orient you a little bit to this slide. These are the residential measures. These are those measures that are mainly focused on residents or are based in kind of residential areas. So lawn and garden equipment, you all just added funding. So this used to be completely full or almost full. You all just added funding to this. So we now have 166,000. And we'll talk a little bit in a moment here about next steps for this measure. For Tune In, Tune Up, that's the repair measure where we repair cars. We're opening in May. It is now May. We are hopefully opening in the next couple of weeks. So be on the lookout for that. That will also be a measure that we will work really closely with you all on regarding outreach. And we have a lot of great updates for you in the coming weeks about timing and next steps for this measure. These two programs, Dial-A-Ride and Car Share, have all been committed funding. We've provided updates about these at the various last couple of meetings. The replace wood-burning devices and residential air filtration, both of those have a good amount of funding left, and that's something we can work with you all on as we talk a little bit about outreach and next steps. We've been going to a lot of events, and I know Michelle from our team has an update specifically about air filtration, but also just regular outreach that we do. And we can really use the next few months to talk about how we get folks to take advantage of these, especially, knock on wood, hopefully, we don't have a big wildfire season, but that'll be even more critical to make sure more folks can take advantage of that. And then finally, the big one that has a lot of funding in it that we know will go fast once we open it is the replacement of passenger vehicles. That is, again, and in the next couple of weeks, it goes hand in hand with Tune In, Tune Up. We will be sending out information very, very shortly on outreach events and how we're planning to launch that program very soon. So just digging into a couple of these as a reminder, residential lawn and garden. We have up to funding left in the SERP for just over 300 lawnmowers. You all voted to reallocate additional funding to the measure in March, and we plan to host an in-person exchange event in the fall. We are working with 2 communities that have never had an in-person exchange event to do that in the next couple of weeks. Then it will be summer and pretty hot. And we're hoping that in fall, it will be a little bit nicer outside to do a similar event like we did with you all a couple of years ago. So be on the lookout for that. And again, we'll include you all in the planning and in the outreach for that measure, for that event rather. And then this is just a reiteration of what I just mentioned. We're not making any recommendations for this measure, although we know this will be popular once it starts. Other than to just let you know that we're hoping to launch an outreach campaign very shortly and let you know about the outreach schedule for hosting a Tune In, Tune Up event in the community. And we'll get with you very shortly on what that date looks like and what that event looks like. And then that's the exact same update for passenger vehicle replacement, where again, you can see how many vehicles we're targeting, how we want to target or launch outreach campaign, weeknight events. And again, we will have that schedule for you very shortly here. Before I get to community school programs, I'll pause really quickly, or really briefly rather, and see if there's any questions. Again, also at the end of the presentation, if something occurs to you, we can always go back and I'm happy to answer. Linda.
I just had a question on the cars. Did that go to CARB where we were going to get $20,000?
Yes.
Do you know if that got approved? Oh, it did.
Correct.
Oh,
this is approved. Yes. The only thing, thank you for asking. This was actually approved by CARB last month and we are good to go. We just have the final contract to sign with Valley Can. There are the partners that help us launch this. And like I mentioned, we are working on finalizing a schedule for outreach events and getting this to where anyone in Shafter can sign up for this program that's like a low income eligible resident.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. Great question. All right. The community and school measure implementation. There are a couple of things that I want to highlight in this particular measure. One is that urban greening, all of the funding has been committed for some time, but you'll see in some pictures here in a moment that we have launched a couple of tree planting events regarding urban greening. So that's not vegetative barriers. That's the one where we're just planting trees in community spaces. Another quick update, or two, I guess, really important updates. And then I'll kind of talk a little bit about vegetative barriers, are the road paving, sidewalk installation, and bike lanes. You all at the in-person meeting, and then subsequently at the following meeting, agreed to increase the funding for the La Colonia area project. We did take that request to our board, as well as the Shafter bike lanes proposal. And our board approved that. So we are moving forward with all of the funding for the road paving, sidewalk installations, and bike lanes for all of the community. So that cert measure, other than actually digging and, actually paving the roads, in terms of the work that we needed to do to get it all approved and the next steps, we are complete with. So that's just such a big step forward, and I know a really big celebration for you all. There's still a lot of work to do. I really am grateful for the county and the city for working with us on getting that moving forward. And we definitely want to celebrate with you all once that groundbreaking happens in each one of these areas, especially the La Colonia area, to get sidewalks and a full road down Menal Avenue. So great work there, and definitely thanks to all of you. And then I'll have a couple of slides a little bit later about school bus funding. But what I'm going to focus on really briefly right now is is the vegetative barriers component, which you can see out of the $1 million, we still have a good amount of funding left. So I'll get to that slide here in a second. I'm going to pause, let you enjoy these amazing pictures. I know it was really hot, so thank you all for being there. There was a tree planting event on May 11th. I know you all saw the quick note from the city that we sent to you all. Angie and Linda were there. Michelle and Rocio from our team were there. And just a lot of great community members and city staff and other folks from the Kern Tree Foundation. We're just so grateful for all of you for being there. And also all of you for supporting this measure. It was a long time coming, and definitely really excited to see, look at that hard work and look at how big those trees are. Those are not small trees. So that must have been a ton of work, and I just really appreciate all of you. And maybe if we have time at the end, I know there's a lot to get to, but if anyone that was there or has any other thoughts, maybe at the end we can just kind of share just some thoughts on the event and kind of how that day went. But really briefly, if you'll all indulge me, I know there's a lot of questions. I'd love to get to the vegetative barriers discussion. So as a reminder, there was $1 million. We did have almost $200,000 that went to our partners at the wonderful company. They actually completed planting along 7th Standard Road, Burbank Street, and Lerdo Highway. I'll let them there. I'm going to have Unique from the wonderful company. She's going to share her screen here in a moment. So I'll let them provide an update on those plantings. But I also wanted to let you know, really related to Angie's question is, well, there's still a lot of funding left. And there are still a lot of areas you all have let us know on tours, in comments here today, in comments at several meetings, that there are a lot of high priority locations that you all want. We have been directly contacting landowners. We've also called schools in the area, including the kind of all of the areas surrounding the La Colonia area and a couple of the different streets you've all directed us to, really trying to talk and connect with the landowners about taking advantage of the funding. So we've made those calls. We definitely want to keep making those calls. I do think some of what's been brought up tonight is increasingly important. And we also have a couple of kind of handouts that we have, but we're also all ears. If there's something that you all feel that you might make more of an impact than the district, we can continue to work with you all on better outreach materials or better tactics on making sure we can connect with folks and really let them know that this is such a partnership, that the funding allows them to be really flexible. And this will be my segue into letting Unique share, they can learn that there are growers in the area that have already done this. And so I'll kind of use that as my segue to have Unique from the wonderful company talk about how they, to all of your point, saw that there was a need in the community, knew that there was funding that we have not only to plant, but maintain and take care of the plants. And then of course, can hopefully we'll start seeing the benefits of those plants as they grow larger. So Unique, if I can pass it to you to give an update on the vegetative barriers project.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. Hi, everyone. My name is Unique. I'm going to be representing the wonderful company this afternoon. I just want to thank everybody who's on this call and participating. As Jessica mentioned, we just wanted to share a few updates on the vegetative barriers. The wonderful company is really excited to be part of this partnership and to be able to plant these in the community. And so I'm going to start sharing my screen. It's a really quick update. So for the vegetative barriers, as Jessica mentioned, we already started planting, and we planted on Lerdo and Burbank. 7th Standard is yet to come. On the right, you could see that here's the progress pictures of our team planting out there. We had to remove some almond trees, and this is the progress photos. Currently, there are 3 miles of oleander barriers planted from Lerdo, from Cherry Avenue to Frank Kern Canal and on Burbank. And overall, there's over more than 1,700 new plants planted. And as mentioned, we are really excited. This is something new for us as the company. And so there are a lot of things that we're learning through this progress. We have faced some challenges with the vegetative barriers. 2 of them have been, we've had plants stolen. And there have also been some upkeeping with we've been having some like dying plants recently, but overall we've planted a total of 3 times because they've gotten stolen twice. So on our end, we're just trying to take precaution and also figure out how we could better move this along. On our end, we're also trying to do soil testing so we could figure out what is the best practices for these plants to thrive. And but with these challenges present, we just want to reassure everybody that we are committed as a company to work on the vegetative barriers and make it a reality for everybody. So what's to come? We still have 2 miles of planting along 7th Standard, and that's going to be planned for the summer of 2024. And as we mentioned with the challenges, if we could see to the right, this is what we hope for, the oleanders to be big and thriving and beautiful. And we just want to thank everybody part of this committee, because we really wouldn't be able to be here without your guys' input. And this is really a community success and your guys' success. So we appreciate it. And this is very much a partnership. So we are open to learning and always listening to your guys' concerns. And so that's pretty much the update. Please let me know if you guys have any questions. And I'll be more than happy to try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Unique. This is Jessica. Does anyone have any questions for Unique?
I see Linda has a question or
I think she was clapping for
Oh,
you.
okay.
Yes, this
Just
is
wanted to-
Diana. Unique, I don't know that you were able to see it when you were sharing your screen, but as you were talking, there was a number of the clapping emojis. So wanted to make sure you saw that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, all the clappings to you guys as well. This is really a team effort and a community effort, and we appreciate you guys on being part of this partnership.
Thanks, Unique. I guess I'll just, before you go, I'll just say, it sounds like you are all learning a lot. Oh, maybe well, here, I'll say this, and then I did see a question in the chat that I think is a nice sort of segue into sort of what's next as well. But I guess in terms of some of the challenges that Angie helped sort of tee up at the beginning of the meeting, were getting other growers in the area to take advantage of this funding. And so it sounds like you are all learning some of the best practices for doing this work. And so I'm just wondering if we can sort of count on you to help us, maybe as we identify folks and they have questions. I'm sure they could learn a lot from you all, and maybe we can work with you all to meet together. And if they have any questions about how, you all did the planting, how you cited where you should, put the drip line, clearly I don't grow plants, but you know what I mean, all the technical logistics that it takes. I'm just hoping we can maybe count on you all as community partners to help other community partners take advantage of this funding.
Yes, we would certainly be open to it. And like we mentioned, we are also learning ourselves. So if any of you guys also have any tips for us, we could all help each other out. So yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And then I don't know if you probably can't see the chat because you're sharing your screen, but Mike from CARB, how long approximately do the oleander barriers take to provide proper protection? Like, how long does it take to get them as big as we just saw in that picture?
So that's something that we're currently trying to figure out. Just like I mentioned, we did have some issues with some plants not thriving as much as the other ones. So we're really trying to check soil and see what we could do to better like what we could do to make the plants thrive a lot better and make that progress. But they do take, I believe, don't quote me, but probably is gonna take a couple months before we're able to see what we see right here on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, I know they're very fast growing, and I think Angelica even put it, maybe a year could be as big as they are. They're super fast, and I think that's what makes them such great barriers.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. At risk of sounding really silly, that was wonderful. So I'm gonna go, haha, thank you. I am going to go back to my screen, but if anyone else has any questions for Unique, go ahead and put them in the chat. And otherwise, thank you so much, Unique, and definitely such a great partnership, a lot of great support from everyone here. And again, I think just such a great, you know, example of some of the partnerships that we've been able to create really the past few months, as you can, or past few years, I should say, as you can see kind of on this next slide. So the last slide I have to share, and really a couple of follow-up slides to this slide, are really where we're going to have a little bit more discussion this evening. These are all of our business and ag measures. So if you all remember to the slide in the very beginning, this is where we're spending about 40% of the funding, but it's where we're getting over 80% of the reduction. So it's a lot of reductions that we're getting, a lot of emissions that can come from this area, and certainly a lot of great partnerships we're able to build with this funding. So a couple of things I want to point you all to are really focusing today on where the funding has been committed and a couple of places where we have yet to spend funding, because those are really, when we think about moving forward in this sort of last big push of SERP implementation, we've made a lot of progress. There are a handful of places where we still have some work to do, but we want to make sure we use all of the funding in your SERP in your community to get as many emissions reductions as possible. And we think that there's a couple of things we can do with it, looking at this to maximize the increase of emissions, or, you know, decrease of emissions, maximizing the reductions that we get. So a couple of the things I'll just remind you is that we've completely funded all of the agricultural alternatives to agricultural burning. So that's where we fund like the chipping as opposed to burning of ag materials. So like branches and trees when they rip out orchards. We've also completely funded the low dust nut harvesters. So those are the things that shake the trees and get the almonds off of the trees that make a lot of dust. Or sorry, those are the things that pick up, that's a shaker. Those are the things that pick up the almonds from the ground, and it picks up a lot of dirt. And when it goes to put it in the truck, it creates a lot of dust. And again, you guys are all acutely familiar because that's the kind of that time of year in the fall that you tend to see a lot of dust in your community. And then the last one that we have completely committed all of the funding and got the most reductions out of anything in the SERP was replacing ag equipment, targeting diesel tractors in the community. One of the places that is a little bit tougher, that we haven't moved a lot of funding, is the yard trucks and TRUs, or truck refrigeration units. That's not to say that we don't still have some outreach to do, but we have done quite a lot of outreach. And just the way that the program has been run and other funding opportunities that are available, we haven't moved a lot of funding. So one of the things that we were going to talk about with you all today, click my thing, we're kind of really targeting two different things that we think are you know, important to you all. The first is we spent $1.25 million in low dust harvesters to replace 25 harvesters in the community. That really did garner a lot of emissions reductions. Those are primarily PM emissions. And so that's like that dust and that fine particulate matter that's in the community, especially during the fall season. We have heard from all of you, and we know it's true that it's not like there were only 25 harvesters in the community. There are way more than the 25 that we went for. And we keep hearing from you all that we still see dust and we still see harvesters, you know, spewing a lot of dust during the harvest season. We have also heard from folks that harvest in the community that there are at least 10 people we've heard just anecdotally from, or even doing some outreach to, that do not have low dust harvesters that would take advantage of the incentives if available. These are, just as a reminder, the incentives that we give does not pay. It's not like we're giving 100%. So these folks, would still have to pay to buy a new harvester, but they would buy a low dust one if they were able to take advantage of the incentives like the other growers were. At the same time, that yard trucks measure that I mentioned a little bit earlier was only targeting 0.03 tons of PM 2.5. It really wasn't targeting PM 2.5 very much, which is really that direct, again, that fine particulate matter. However, if we were able to shift some of the money from yard trucks to replace 10 additional harvesters, we know that we could actually get over 50 tons of PM 2.5. We know that we can work with you all to try to identify locations where we want to make sure, as best as possible, make sure that these harvesters are used, of course, 100% in the boundary. That's the only way this funding is able to be used, but really going towards areas within your community that are near where we're talking about that folks are being impacted. This does not change the overall CERP funding. It's just shifting it from one business measure to another. So it's not from a resident measure and it's not from a community measure, and it's actually getting more reductions than what we would shift it from, meaning more benefit to the community if we're able to move this funding. So I do see some questions raised. I'm going to keep this up, but definitely a couple things before we start taking questions. One is, this is the first we're hearing about it. So if folks are ready to make a decision today, we're not going to stop you, but we also understand this is the first time you're hearing about it. So we're not proposing necessarily that we make a shift today. We just want to hear your questions. And I'll also just, second thing is we have Ryan Delmanowski. He's the supervisor for this program, who I'm sure would be happy to answer questions about the type of program and the way it works. With that, I'll go take Linda and Bianca's questions.
Thank you, Jessica. I just had a question, this yard truck thing that you're talking about. Have we promoted that to anyone? Has there been any interest at all? I don't know what businesses use that. Do you know if we've had any folks interested?
Great question. This is Jessica. We actually have we also have like a broader district yard truck program. We've been promoting it. I don't have the list off the top of my head. There are businesses in the area. Yard trucks are kind of used. It kind of just depends on the location, but generally it's sort of like at facilities. It could be warehouses. It could be kind of just other facilities like ag, processing facilities. There are a couple of industries within the larger boundary that use yard trucks. There has been a good amount of outreach. We aren't recommending taking all of the funding, just to your point, Linda. If there are folks that are interested, we certainly want to leave funding in there. And then to that point, if after we move this and for some reason there's other interest, we can keep looking at all of the other CERT measures. So I hope that helps answer your question a little bit. I don't have the exact.
So with the amount that we're going to leave, how many yard trucks would be available? Do you know roughly?
Great
Because
question.
I know you just said 10 harvesters
Yeah.
we could get.
We could get 10 harvesters, and the amount of yard trucks, let me double check that for you. I'll put it in the chat, or I'll unmute and answer the question. We have 1.5 million for that total for that measure. So we're taking about 2/3 of what the target was. And let me just go back really quickly and double check what that number. It really depends on the truck. It really depends on how much they use it, how much funding they get. So it will be an estimate, but I'll get that number to you.
And is it electric only?
To get to the yard truck?
The yard truck, like, is it only an electric vehicle, or can they get
Yeah,
like
it has
a
both
CNG or
zero
whatever?
emission vehicle.
So it's only electric, no CNG, no anything
Correct.
else.
It can't be like,
Correct.
and I'll double check that all as well. But it has, the reason I say zero emission is, in theory, anything that's zero emission could also include like hydrogen. But yes, zero emission.
Okay. Okay. And then you did mention that the low dust knot harvesters, like, because I know this has come up in other meetings, like if we did move funding, they are going to be in our area, right? They are not going to get moved.
Yes,
Okay.
there's thank you for great question. This is for if they are getting funding for it, it has to be used in the boundary. It's not like someone's going to get funding and it's not like you're only eligible for the funding if you're using it in the shafter boundary.
Okay, thank you so much.
And Bianca.
Sorry, I have a question in regards to shifting that funding to the nut harvesters. In the past, we've had that discussion about the nut harvesters that were already allocated. We didn't see them inside the boundaries. We haven't had a specific address where these nut harvesters are being used. So we don't know in depth and if it's going to be used. So I don't agree in having that, instead of using that funding for road improvements. I know that Yolanda from the Kern County Public Works was gonna do their work in connecting La Colonia Mexicana, Smith's Corner, and Cherrick Strip. So that's gonna take a lot of funding out of there. I would prefer for that funding to go to the road improvements that need more condition. Also, there's other community incentive programs that could be used instead of these nut harvesters that companies have the money. I know that there's a demand, but we're not even sure that if it's going to be used in the area. Even the ones that have been already used, the funding that had been already approved, we don't even know if they're using them here. As we heard, there's other areas in the area that we've seen that there's no changes on the nut harvester. So I don't agree in having that happen in the area, because there's more improvement that needs to be happening in Shafter.
Thanks, Bianca. Maybe I can just address a couple of things, and maybe I'll pass it to Ryan to talk a little bit more as well. Anyone who received a harvester, Ryan, can you answer a little bit about sort of what it takes to receive a low dust harvester, what happens to the old harvester, and how we know that those harvesters are being used in the boundary? And then I'm going to tee up like 3 questions for you. And then if you can also, maybe I'll stop sharing my screen. Ryan, if you can also answer, we replaced 25. I know we don't know an exact number because it changes and it's variable, but we know that 25 was not all of the harvesters in the area. Can you just maybe describe a little bit of like what you see in terms of like types of, or how many harvesters can be in an area as large as the boundary?
Yeah. So in terms of the process, so ultimately with a lot of our vehicle replacement programs is that the old unit goes away and gets dismantled. So that's the big thing. So to answer your first question, the old, dirtier harvesters, those are long gone. We have photos. Our inspection staff is out there when those old units get dismantled, so we know for a fact that they are gone.
Sorry, this is Jessica. Really quickly. So then, meaning to your point, like Bianca was like, oh, we don't know if they're even using them. They would have no other option because they've got rid of their old one, right? Yep,
exactly. So if they've gone through the process to purchase a new one, and that's the other thing, we do all this after we have confirmed purchase of the new unit. So we know for a fact that they purchased the new unit. Then again, therefore they go ahead and we make them destroy the old unit. So like you said, Jessica, they would be out of a harvester at that point if they weren't going to use it. And then also in terms of location, we also confirm location. So to ensure that they are within the Shafter boundaries. Obviously we get their address and everything like that. But again, our inspectors actually go out to their physical location where those harvesters are housed and to the property where they are located and where they're used, and we confirm exactly where they're at, and we get GPS coordinates and everything like that. So even if the address isn't 100% exact, we know exactly where they are used. And so definitely we do a lot of work, and we do our due diligence to make sure that the locations they give us are correct and they are in fact in the boundaries. So and I'm sorry, Jessica, what was your second question?
We talked a little bit. I just wanted to, there's 25 that we know have been replaced. We know they're in the boundary, but, Bianca's not wrong in that there's probably folks that drive by and still see a conventional harvester being used in parts of the boundary. The boundary is rather big. I imagine 25 is probably not like the full amount. Obviously, we already know of 10 folks, I think, that are nearby, closer to the community, like where folks live. that would take advantage. I mean, do we think, I've not prepped Ryan for any of these questions. Do we think
Okay.
there's maybe 40, like, I don't know how many harvesters could there be, or we maybe don't even know?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't know, and I'm hesitant to even throw out a number, but it is definitely something where, like, I don't want to diminish the impact that 25 harvesters have. Like it is a huge impact, but again, when we're talking about a 7-mile radius, it's going to be hard to see that impact on just 25 units because there are a lot of almonds in the valley, and especially in the Shafter area. And so, like you mentioned, there are a lot of conventional harvesters still being used out there. And also it depends on harvest times. Different growers will harvest at different times. So depending on when people see a conventional harvester being used versus a new clean harvester being used, there's so many different things that kind of come into play. It's hard, but yeah, to answer your question, 25 harvesters over the 7-mile radius, which is the Shafter boundary. It would be hard to see that when there's so many other harvesters and almond acreage that's still using old dirty equipment.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to really quickly share my screen, and then I'll get back to the group. CARB has something that they have been putting together called their community hub, which actually maps all of the 617 funding across the state. And it does a really good job of, can you all see my screen? Sorry, it probably takes a second to load. Here, I'll make it
Yes,
bigger.
thank you.
It does a really good job. I zoomed in on Shafter. I'll drop this in because it's a variety of different layers. The layers are the different types of projects are, the red, I think, is more like community incentives projects. The blue is more like heavy duty equipment, but you can see all of the different things that have happened in the boundary. Obviously, when it comes to ag equipment, it's not like it's just being used in this little circle, it's being used on the whole field. So you have to remember that a little bit. And sometimes I'm imagining, Ryan, like someone maybe owns a field over here, but they could also harvest over here and over here. Is that something to keep in mind too when looking at this?
Yes. A lot of growers in my experience, they don't necessarily just have their one field right there. If they're not a small farmer, if they're anything bigger than just your typical small farmer, they will have fields kind of throughout. So while there are, I know for a fact there are several that we funded in the boundaries that they have a large amount of acreage in the boundaries, but they also do have other acreage outside the boundaries as well in the surrounding area that they use those harvesters on. They may not fall, again, those fields may not fall directly in the boundaries, but they're still in the area. And again, they also have large fields that are directly in the boundaries. So it can go both ways.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I will let Linda and then Bianca.
I think I didn't put my hand down. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay. And then Bianca.
It shows a very good, I know that 7 miles is a lot, but it also includes population of homes and things like that. So the 7 miles is not including all agriculture. Another thing is that we don't even know where the old harvesters are at the moment. Only the air district knows. So if we do know clarity, where are these not harvesters supposedly working at, we would have clarity that when there's harvesting seasons and we see some type of violation, we're able to contact the air district. Those are the things that we should know and be more clarified as community members from the 617. So only the air district knows where these locations. Also, inspections. I didn't hear anything about random inspections from the nut harvesters when there's actually harvesting season. So I think that's another point that we should clarify. Another thing that I wanted to add is that we don't have like the company Wonderful, where we had a good neighborhood agreement where they got a lot of nut harvesters. We found out that they did get a lot of nut harvesters, but they were able to put oleanders, green vegetative barriers. So these companies that receive the nut harvesters at the beginning, why aren't they doing their actual part in doing some extra steps, like putting green vegetative barriers? So those are, and and also there's still money allocated for the green vegetative barriers. So companies that would want the nut harvesters, they should also receive the application for the green vegetative barriers. Nut harvesters are not gonna they're not gonna stop the whole dust, but it would diminish some type of dust coming into the communities. So I think before even allocating any type of funding for the nut harvesters, other growers should look at options out there. There's still money for the vegetative barriers. There's still other ways they're able to diminish the dust to come into the roads. And if they're not doing their part, they only want the big machineries. It sounds nice and dandy, but do that extra step so community members could see that we're doing a good neighborhood, good neighbors, and we're able to work with them. So, and if we don't see that happening, then how are community members just gonna have to completely give out money out of their SERP to these companies that are not doing their part? So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if anybody has more comments or any questions.
Bianca. Oh, Michelle.
Well, those farmers are doing their part. It costs them money. A lot of times the equipment they have is still solid equipment and they put out a lot of money to replace it. They are doing their part trying to reduce emissions and dust. They are doing their part, and I believe we should help them do their part. It's a horrible time of the year with the inversion layer, and if there's something we can help them do their part, then I'm all for it.
Jessica, there's also a question. This is Diana in the
Okay,
chat from Angelica about what kind of harvesters we're talking about, walnut, almond, or which ones.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah. So generally it's almond harvesters, but actually the same units are used whether it's almonds or walnuts. It just my understanding is it's just the type of chains that are in the harvesters. The specific grower would if they're an almond grower, they would have chains built for almonds. If they're a walnut grower, they have chains for walnuts. But the same low dust technology is still there, and it's the same exact units. So again, I think mostly almonds is my understanding. I think there might be a few growers doing walnuts, but it's the same exact machines that do both.
Thanks, Ryan. Like I mentioned, I know this is a lot of information. We definitely did not expect this to be like a one and done discussion. So, but I would like to hear if there's anyone who wants maybe whatever information either myself or Ryan can answer right now, or if there's questions. I actually heard, from some of Bianca's comments, I wonder if we can come back with a little more definitive. I'll just say the district, it's not really a district, maybe it's more of a CARB thing, or I don't know, with the universe of like an inventory for types of mobile equipment. To answer your question a little bit, Bianca, that's not 100% true that we know exactly where every single piece of off-road or on-road equipment is, depending on the type of work it does and the jurisdiction. Though to your point, we do have contacts, of course, that we work closely with in the ag community. And so we can do a little bit more digging on our end to understand where these harvesters that we want to replace are. So I definitely think that's one question, folks want to hear an answer to. Just the location. I think what I also heard, not only that community hub that I just shared, but maybe just a general understanding of locations of which fields are being harvested with the equipment we've already replaced. And then I guess any other questions that folks want to either know right now that we can answer, or questions we can maybe bring back some more information. Awesome. Well, what I'll do too is I'll answer any, we'll go back, Linda had some great questions, and really about moving the funding where it's coming from. And I think that's just another important reminder. It's on the slide, so I won't share it again, but just a reminder is we're asking about shifting funding from a business measure to a business measure. So we wouldn't be taking funding away from a community-based or residential-based measure. We're also we're taking it away from a measure that's not really geared towards getting a lot of emissions reductions towards one that will get a lot of emissions reductions. I'll also acknowledge, I do think Bianca has a great point in that we need to pair measures together, but just vegetative barriers alone is not going to solve the dust issue. It really does need to be a paired event. That the dust, as you all know, from the conventional harvesters is so much different than dust from the regular harvesters. And there's actually not a legal, there's no requirement, there's no rule out there that says they have to use, that they have to buy their own new ones. So the only way we get them really to get the new harvester is to help them pay for it. As Michelle mentioned, and as we've heard, you know, folks, if they're not required to and they're making business decisions, they're going to keep using the old equipment, which again is unfortunate because it's obviously pretty dirty. So it is a measure in the SERP. You have all just been so great in helping us move the measure forward the first time. So it's just a proposal out there to help maybe get more emissions reductions. Definitely no decision to make today, and I definitely appreciate the conversation. Any other thoughts before we move on and kind of take some of those next steps for the district to answer?
This is Diana. I'm also looking in the chat.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
And I know, Jess, you added the website, the link to the website that you were looking at with those.
Right, yes. And Brian added the much cleaner, prettier version of that link just below. I added some random link after I clicked a bunch of buttons. So Brian Moore's link is the prettier version of that map link.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Other questions for Jessica or Ryan or?
Oh, one question, sorry, I didn't mention it earlier. Ryan, can you just tell me how much a harvester normally costs and what this measure covers, just so we can have that as well?
Yeah, so it depends on what type. There's self-propelled harvesters, the ones that drive themselves, and then there's PTO or pull behind harvesters where a tractor pulls them along. So self-propelled ones obviously a lot more expensive. We see them. Man, I think the most recent ones we've seen are upwards of $250,000 for the self-propelled harvesters, and then right around $90,000 to $100,000 for the pull behind harvesters. And the shafter SERP would pay a flat 75% of the total cost of the harvester.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Just arming everyone with, you know, a lot of information.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, well, we still have some answers to bring to you all, both about the harvesters, the locations, and the yard trucks. So thank you all for the conversation. That actually ends, I just had a wrap-up slide that said all of this same stuff. So that sort of ends my presentation. And unless there's other questions, I will pass it back to Harder and Company.
This is Diana. Thank you so much, Jess. Now I'm going to pass it to Vanessa for our standing updates, but first want to do one last round of checking for questions about Jessica's presentation about the incentive budgets. I'm looking in the chat. I don't see any, so I'm going to pass it to Jessica, to Vanessa. You're next to me in the little squares. Passing it to Vanessa.
Great, thanks, Diana. Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa, and I'll be sharing standing updates today. So first up, we have an update from the Air District. Jessica, would you mind sharing?
I'm going to pass it to Michelle on our team to talk a little bit about outreach we've recently done. Oops, Michelle, you're on mute.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. My name's Michelle. I work with our outreach and communications team at the Valley Air District. I have a really quick presentation. I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. So I just have a few slides on some of the outreach that we've been doing in Shafter. These are 2 events that we have participated at since the last time we all met together. We had a team that went out to the Grow Academy Shafter Health and Wellness Fair, and this took place in April. We also had a team that went out to the Cinco de Mayo event that took place at the park. We did have this team that went out to the Grow Academy. They help residents sign up for our Clean Air Rooms program, as well as provide information and materials on some of our programs. We took 15 air purifiers out there that day, and so 15 families got to take home their air purifier. We did have additional people that signed up. And this is the Cinco de Mayo event that took place on May 4th at Manor Park. This day we only took 10 purifiers, so it's a first come, first serve the way that we've been doing it recently. But again, we still help people sign up for the program additionally, and they can have their purifiers mailed to them. So this day 10 families got to take home their purifiers, and 4 people got it mailed to them. This was a very great event. We had a lot of people swing by our booth. So if you were out there and came by and said hi, this is the team that was out there. And just a quick update, and this is as of May 8th. So a little late in the week last week that we got these numbers. We finally hit over 1,000. So we're at 1,015 air purifiers that have been distributed already in Shafter. So again, we are still sharing our flyers. If you need more flyers, let us know. We'd be happy to mail some to you guys, or we can drop some off. And this is what we have planned coming in the next couple months. In Shafter, we are signed up to take some information out to the First Friday events. We hope to be there June 14th and August 2nd. I know that these go well into the fall. So we'll be out there to hang out with some of you guys. Again, if you guys have any other events or anything that's going on in Shafter that you would like us to be at, please feel free to send us information, and it's either to me or Rocio. We'd be happy to come out and provide information about some of our programs. And I think it can go back to Jess.
Yes, thanks, Michelle. That looks amazing. And again, Michelle was one of the folks that on our team that was clearly you can see our team is out there a lot. And I just appreciate Rocio and Michelle and everyone on our team, Anna, who's on this call, for going out there as much as they do. And Michelle is one of the people planting those giant trees. I can't tell, I've been to a bunch of tree plantings lately. Those were huge. And so again, I just appreciate our team and appreciate all of you for letting us be in your community. It's so important. Speaking of important community connections, I'm putting in the chat, you have seen some emails from us. We are having on June 22nd, a Community Clean Air Day. A few of you are already registered and we're so excited. This is something that is happening on a Saturday in Fresno, in downtown Fresno. We will have a couple of discussions with community members from all of the different CSCs and other community groups across our entire district. So folks in Stockton, Arvin, Lamont, Shafter, Fresno. We're also going to have some agency folks there, but super importantly, we're going to have a lot of sort of similar stuff that Michelle was just talking about. We're going to have a lot of giveaways, a lot of opportunity for folks to sign up for clean air things like purifiers and lawn and garden equipment, and maybe for you to bring a neighbor or someone who's never engaged with the Air District to an event. It is free. We will have free food, both breakfast and lunch. And if you need assistance getting there, we are having a bus pick folks up from Shafter to bring you directly to the event and also take you back. I just dropped a link in the chat. That's just our really quick landing page where you can use that registration form that's on there to sign up. We are also about to update that page with the agenda and a couple of other details. But really, the more we can get folks to sign up, that means we'll directly reach out to them with updates and next steps. I know a few of you have already signed up. I know a few neighbors. I know people that have already decided to bring family. All are welcome, and we're really, really excited to share this space with you all and get you all, if you've never met someone from Stockton that works on the same things you do, this will be your chance. So thank you, and I'll pass it back. Well, maybe I'll stop. Sorry, if there are any questions.
Jessica, this is Diana. Will there be interpretation at that meeting?
Great question. There will be interpretation at the meeting. And if you're a resident member, you'll still get your stipend. It will be treated like another AB 617 meeting. Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Michelle. This is Vanessa. Great to hear so many updates about all those outreach events. Great to see so many smiling faces and making sure that people are taking advantage of those air purifiers. Also encourage folks to attend those upcoming outreach events if you haven't signed up for them already. At this time, I'm going to pass it on to CARB. I believe they have an update to share today as well. Mike, I think you're up.
Hello. Thank you. Hi. First, I wanted to just quickly introduce myself again, since last time I did not have a lot of time to introduce myself. My name is Mike Alves. I am new at the Office of Community Air Protection at CARB. And my past experience is in analytical and atmospheric chemistry. And so I did a lot of work on not just the analysis of, understanding pollution, but also building the instruments that measure these as well, such as PM and NO2. So for the update, this will be really quick. We're updating CARB's board on the various AB 617 communities in July. And so when we have that information, we'll be passing it on here. And Brian, do you have anything else to add?
No, thanks, Mike. I think that's it. We should have a notice for that annual update like in the next week, so we can send it out to you all through Air District staff, when that annual update's happening, so y'all can plan. And so Mike will be, I know Scott Wall is never replaceable, but Mike is has his great attributes as well, so he'll be helping us out track everything in chapter. So thank you all for welcoming me in. And yeah, if you have any questions that are CARB related, feel free to email Mike. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Brian. This is Vanessa. Does anyone have any questions or comments related to what was just shared for CARB? All right, next up we have DPR, who is also going to be sharing an update.
Hello, this is Jimmy Nguyen from DPR. I'm here to provide an update about DPR's statewide notification system. So last Friday, through the Air District, a letter from DPR's Deputy Director, Karen Morrison, was shared with both Shafter and the Arvin-Lamont CSC communities. I encourage everyone to read that letter for more information. I do have some brief bullet points I would be sharing the community. So in regards to the beta tests, DPR has been in discussions with Kern County over the last several months, but unfortunately we were unable to find a path forward for a beta test before moving to the final system development. To provide notification in Kern County and across the state as soon as possible, DPR is transitioning to final system development. We are anticipating the launch of the statewide pesticide notification system in the first quarter of 2025. In regards to outreach for the statewide implementation, as part of the implementation, we are developing a strategy for outreach and engagement, which includes both community and grower outreach and engagement. We are in the process of planning where to focus outreach and engagement. We anticipate that we will engage locally with Kern County, along with other communities across the state throughout the first year of the launch of the statewide notification system. We anticipate sharing more information on this process as we firm our outreach plans later this year. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to the Environmental Monitoring Branch Chief, Min Pham, for additional updates.
Hey y'all, this is Min. Happy to be back. It's been a little bit of time since I've seen some folks here, so really happy to be back off the bench and back here playing and seeing everybody again. Yeah, so as Jimmy mentioned here, Karen Morrison, our Chief Deputy Director, had sent out that letter, and I appreciate the Air District helping us send all that out. A lot of things were outlined in that, and I know that there's a little bit of disappointment, or a lot of disappointment with not being able to get the beta test in place here in Shafter. But in order for us to get moving forward with the the notification system by 2025, we moved forward. So everything's kind of outlined in there. I'm actually going to drop into the link the website. This was also in the letter, and hopefully it should. Hopefully this works. This is, hopefully that works. If not, I will have to relink that. But that's to our notification system website itself. All the information about the beta testing, the pilot, implementation, all that stuff should be on that website and readily available for you. And a couple other updates outside of that I wanted to bring to light. My team's also going to have a presentation this Friday as part of the Pesticide Registration and Evaluation Committee. We do this periodically. It's a combined presentation with ourselves, OEHA, CARB, water districts, a bunch of other California agencies. We'll be talking about, as part of the first 130 regulation that we had put into place, we have this 1,3-dichloropropene tracker system that we have put into place, usage tracker. So our team is going to talk about that, and we have this whole web page set up. And then we're also going to be talking about a seasonal study that we had just gone through. So hopefully both of those things, if the community group is interested in that, they're kind of adjacent, but also has some ties to concerns that this community has brought up in the past. So, you know, happy to have you guys join in, and if there's any additional questions that involve this community, we're here to address those as well. So just wanted to bring those things up, and let me know if that link doesn't work, and I will try to get the actual like HTML web link in here. So
it worked.
Okay, sounds good. And then I will get the community, I'm sorry, the PREC link into the website. I'm sorry, the chat as well. I'm sorry, I haven't done this in a while, and I thought it would be like riding a bike, and clearly I am stumbling all over myself. So it's been a while, so I'm actually happy to be back. So any questions that you guys will have, I'm here for it. So.
Thanks, Min. Thanks, Jimmy. This is Vanessa. I have a question in the chat. Can you send the link via email for reference?
Links to which? Well, actually, we can send both. But yeah, we can coordinate to send both those links.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments for DPR? I don't see anything else in the chat, no hands raised, so I'm going to continue. This is Vanessa. Are there any other agencies that have any updates that they'd like to share tonight? And lastly, before I continue on to the next item, are there any questions or comments about anything that you all heard today during standing updates? All right, it looks like we can transition onto our wrap up next steps agenda setting item. Oh, I see there is a hand raised. Michelle, please go ahead.
Before you get into the next step, I don't know when we're going to have our agenda setting meeting since it says to be announced. I was wondering, the wonderful industrial park, I believe, is not in our sphere of influence, but it's very close. They're talking about expanding their facilities, and I kind of be interested to know what that's going to do for traffic wise in the city of Shafter, not Gossamer Grove, but actually the city of Shafter. So if that's something maybe we might want to look at as it goes along. Thank you.
This is Jessica. I actually was wondering, I think that's a great point of, I think this is where you were going, Vanessa, with next steps for the next meeting. But yeah, hearing that as one of an update we can have at the next meeting. It sounds like we have a few other things to bring to the next meeting based on action items today. But maybe we can also hear what other folks want to talk about at future meetings. The reason we do not have an agenda setting meeting in the next few weeks is we've sort of had sort of an ongoing list of items that we are going to tackle. And we've sort of had lower participation in the agenda setting meetings. So I think given the extra time here today, we can maybe talk a little bit about that if that works. Perfect segue. Thanks, Diana.
This is Vanessa. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Michelle, for your question. And yes, that's a perfect segue into our wrap up next steps item. So to start off, as Jessica mentioned, Community Clean Air Day is coming up. It will be on Saturday, June 22nd at 9 a.m. And it's going to be at the Fresno Convention Center. More information about stipends, transportation, and other event details will be coming soon. In the meantime, if you are interested in registering, you can click on the link that Jessica posted in the chat not too long ago and register there. And as for the next CSC meeting, that is going to take place on Monday, June 10th at 5 p.m. via Zoom. And as for agenda setting, as Jessica had mentioned, there are a couple of topics that have come up in previous agenda setting meetings that we want to elevate to see if folks still want to talk about these at the next meeting, or if they feel the need to attend agenda setting meeting to discuss other topics in depth. I'm going to use some time now to chat about that. So I'd like to share some of those topics. Specifically, the main topics that have come up are district enforcement efforts, as well as a demo of the AQ View tool, which is a community-focused air quality data tool that is developed by CARB. So I'm curious to hear from the CSC whether these are still of interest to you all, or if there's other topics that you're interested in discussing.
And this is Jessica. I'll just add to that list the remaining discussion from today to answer the questions that came up today, as well as the request from Michelle about an update on nearby projects. Wonderful.
Do any of those topics, this is Vanessa, by the way, do any of those topics resonate for folks? So just to repeat, in addition to the topic related to vegetative barriers that Jessica mentioned, there was also district enforcement efforts and a demo of the AQ View tool.
Awesome. Well, knowing, oh, go ahead, Cesar.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the district enforcement rules were something that sounded interesting to me.
This is Jessica. Thanks, Cesar. That definitely sounds like a good list to be going on with for an upcoming meeting. So even if there's more things that you all want to talk about, we can spread them out over the handful of next few meetings as well. Thanks.
And Jessica, this is Diana. There's a comment from Brian in the chat about CARB can also demo the AQ View tool.
Yeah, if anyone's interested and wants it outside of a CSC meeting, because I know you all are jammed with stuff, just email Mike and we can set that up separately too if that works better for the subgroup that's interested. Yeah.
This is Jessica. That's an interesting idea too. Maybe as we craft our next agenda, we can also in that email out to you all as the CSC with the draft, we can also maybe provide an update, what you just mentioned, Brian, and solicit interest in that, and that could help us manage some time there. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. This is Vanessa. Any other reflections or comments that folks would like to share about these topics before we move on to readout of action items? All right, not seeing anything, so I will continue. This is Vanessa. First off, I want to thank you all for engaging in today's meeting to help address your community's air quality. It's always great to see you all here engaging in today's topics and questions. As we get to the end of our meeting, to help transparency and accountability, we're going to go ahead and review the action items that we wrote down during our meeting today. And just want to let you know, we do write these down quickly. So in case we might have missed something or we missed the meaning of any of the requests that we wrote down, we do apologize, and we encourage you to let us know if there's any items that we missed or any items that we need to correct. So at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Just give me 1 second. All right, can folks see my screen okay? I'll increase the Zoom so you can all see better. This is Vanessa.
Yes, I can see that.
Thank you, Diana. So tonight we have a couple of action items. The first one is Wonderful will collaborate with the Air District by providing guidance on vegetative barrier logistics and on how community partners can take advantage of funding. And the second one is the Air District will do some research to better understand where the nut harvesting equipment is that companies want replaced and or the location of current low dust nut harvesters.
This is Diana. Vanessa, there was also one about sending the links via email, the links that DPR shared in their presentation.
Sounds good. All right, thanks, Diana. This is Vanessa. Are there any other action items that I missed or any changes that folks want to make to the existing action items? I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. All right, this is Vanessa. Thank you everyone for your continued engagement tonight. As always, we're really grateful that the CSC has attended today's meeting and has also shared their questions, their comments, their reflections tonight. At this time, we'd like to open up the floor to anyone who would like to make any final comments. As a reminder, community member comments are really important in this process because they ensure that this program is shaped with the community perspective and needs in mind. And so if you would like to make a comment, instructions are on this slide. Please feel free to raise your Zoom hand or type a comment in the chat if you would like to share something.
This is Diana. Vanessa, can you check the YouTube live to see if there are any questions there?
This is Vanessa. I am not seeing any comments on YouTube live at the moment.
Thank you.
And I'm not seeing any comments in the chat. No hands raised. So I think that wraps up our meeting for tonight. Thanks so much to everyone again for attending, for being present, for asking your questions, your comments, your concerns, or providing your concerns. We're really grateful that you're here tonight and every other night that we have a CSC meeting. And I hope that you all have a wonderful night and see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Stay
Thank you.
cool. It's
Bye.
hot
Thank
already.
you.